How Ramp turned a boring finance machine into a $40 billion positioning monster. So, what I want to do today is I want to go into how Ramp's positioning themselves and how they're showing up in the market. So, they're selling back time to CFOs, and I want to kick this off with my positioning intelligence agent, Edward. Okay.
Hello, this is Edward. Who am I speaking with?
Hey Edward, you're speaking with Troy. So as of 48 minutes ago, it is now, what is it, May 7th. Ramp has told its investors it's raising 750 million at a $40 billion valuation, which is pretty incredible. So I want to review their website. I want to go through how they're positioning themselves and how they've came to dominate this space. I believe that they're selling time back to CFOs and they're helping simplify financials, which makes it a super straightforward sell when you're looking at corporate finance. So I'm going to read off their headline and their main page. I want you to help me analyze and summarize some of their positioning. And I want you to ask hard questions so we can kind of get to the bottom of this, make this educational, fun, and exciting. And let's get into it. Ready?
Troy, good to hear from you. Ramp at 40 billion. That's a signal worth dissecting. Before you read me the headline, I want to ask you something first. When you say they're selling time back to CFOs, whose language is that? Yours or theirs?
That's my language. I believe that's just my analysis of where they're at in the market and how they have been able to position themselves so uniquely and get into the hands of all sorts of companies. Like we have, what do we have here? They have, oh, this is a rotating testimonial board here. So they have Vanta, they have Open Door, they have Deal, Cognition, Kuman, Cursor, Zillow, 11 Labs, A24, Visa, Notion, Stripe, CBRE, Discord, Twilio, Webflow, Shopify. So like really good software. I'm assuming that's what the actual deal is.
That's a deliberate social proof strategy. And notice the pattern. Those aren't random logos. That's a curated signal. Here's my question for you, Troy. Looking at that list, Cursor, Notion, Discord, A24, Shopify, what do those companies have in common that Ramp specifically wants you to feel when you see them together?
Well, I mean, a lot of them are cutting edge tech, and a lot of them are high-end payment processing platforms. So they, I don't really want to go into their proof signals just yet. I want to read off the hero section, and then I want to go into that. But keep that in mind as I keep going down.
Got it. Go ahead, read me the hero section.
Okay, so U.S. corporate payments processed by Ramp, 0.6863877% and going up. So they have a live tracker on their website. Cards, expenses, bill payments, and banking in the blink of AI. So then they just have a wonderful visualization here. Click and drag expenses. There's a ramp card. So I'm assuming this ramp card plugs into a backend that just organizes everything corporate wise. So agents at work today, accounting fields coded, agent interactions, expenses reviewed, 23,000, agent interactions 63, accounting fields coded, 1.1 million and counting. Very cool. So that's what they have there in a little ticker. Then there's those logos I had mentioned earlier with a headline of join 50,000 of the world's most ambitious companies, growing 3.2x faster than the average American business. So, with me reading all that off, what are you seeing? What do you want to dive into? And what should we discuss a little bit further?
Okay, a few things are jumping out at me immediately. Cards, expenses, bill payments, and banking in the blink of AI. That's their category claim right there. They're not saying they're a better expense tool. They're saying AI is the new speed of finance. But here's what I want to push on. joined 50,000 of the world's most ambitious companies, growing 3.2 times faster than the average American business. That's not a product claim. That's an identity claim. They're not selling software, they're selling who you become by using it. So here's my hard
Hmm.
question for you, Troy. If Ramp's real positioning is identity based, meaning their buyer isn't just buying a finance tool, they're buying membership into a category of ambitious, fast growing companies, what does that tell you about who their actual enemy is in this positioning? And I don't mean a competitor. I mean, what belief or behavior are they positioning against?
Well, usually the opposite would be the enemy, right? So it's a slow growing, unambitious company. That that's who the enemy would be. They don't want to work with small companies. They can't. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to optimize the finances of nothing.
That's partially right, but I want to push you deeper on that. The enemy isn't just small or slow companies. Look at the language again. Most ambitious companies. Ambition is a mindset, not a size. So the real enemy Ramp is positioning against isn't a type of company. It's a way
Un
of operating.
it's
The enemy,
unambitious. Like it's right. Like, am I totally off there?
you're not off, but you're one layer above the real answer. Unambitious is the identity of the enemy. But the behavior of the enemy is manual, reactive, and slow. Ramp is saying, if you're still operating your finances the old way, you are by definition unambitious. They've made a process problem into an identity problem. That's the sharp edge of their positioning. They didn't just make slow finance look inefficient. They made it look embarrassing. So here's my question for you. If they've successfully made manual finance feel like an identity threat, what emotion is actually driving the CFO to sign up for Ramp? Is it aspiration or is it fear?
It's absolutely fear. They don't want to. I mean, it's a mix of things. The CFO is afraid of like falling behind, looking dumb, but it like to be on the cutting edge here. This looks incredible. It looks like a wonderful product. I think there's something to be said about having such a good product that the product does the positioning. But yeah, the CFO is afraid of not. There's twofold. The CFO is afraid of doing a bunch of manual work because like managing finances at scale is incredibly like overbearing. However, the identity, yeah, they're moving away from fear because moving away from fear generally converts higher than does gaining pleasure.
That's a sharp observation. Moving away from pain converts faster than moving toward pleasure. You're right. But here's what Ramp did that's actually more sophisticated than just fear. They stacked both. They gave the CFO a fear to run from manual, slow, embarrassing, and an identity to run toward ambitious, AI native, fast growing. That's a dual emotional engine. Most brands pick one. Ramp engineered both into a single headline. But you said something I want to pull on. You said,
But did
such a
they
good.
did they really like that's where I think maybe you're reading a little deeper. Did they actually purposefully engineer that into two different headlines? Because there's one headline, cards, expenses, bill payments, and banking in the blink of AI. And then the secondary headline that comes into the testimonial section is that join the 50,000 of the world's most ambitious companies. So inside of that, are they really actually marketing to the fear? I don't think they are.
That's a fair challenge, and honestly, you're right to push back onto that. They're not explicitly marketing to the fear. The fear is implied. It lives underneath the aspiration. They never say, stop doing things manually or don't get left behind.
Yeah,
They don't have.
the identity allows the fear to rise. Okay, okay, fair. Fair rebuttal. So I'd like to go to the next section and read off this section. I don't want to lag on that section for too much longer.
Go ahead, read it off.
Okay, so one platform for your entire back office, infinite agents that work 24/7. Make the switch. And then there's two different cards here, two animated cards. Cards and expenses that handle themselves. That's really cool. Procure to pay without chasing approvals. So then it shows somebody uploading, I believe someone's uploading a bunch of invoices. Okay, cool. Then there's another section, accounting automation eliminates month-end madness. So it shows a bunch of automation with a bunch of high-end logos. It's very smart. Okay, so that's a WeWork merchant. There's a bunch of merchants going over all the costs. Banking that flows money to the highest return, cash and treasury. Okay. 200 plus integrations to the tools you already use. And then it's just a bit of a globe of a ton of different integrations. So that's cool.
Okay, so notice what they just did across that entire section. They didn't list features. They listed problems they're eliminating. Handles themselves without chasing approvals. Eliminates month-end madness. Every single line is a pain point being erased, not a capability being added. That's deliberate. They're not saying what RAMP does. They're saying what you'll never have to do again. And month-end madness, that's three words that every CFO and controller feels in their body. That's not marketing language. That's therapy language. So here's my question, Troy. Across all of those sections, expenses, procurement, accounting, banking, integrations, they've essentially described the entire back-office finance stack. What does that tell you about their actual strategic ambition here? Because this isn't a card company anymore. What are they really building?
Yeah, I mean, they're building a finance automation company. They're basically what they're doing here, I think, and this makes sense. If everybody uses the ramp card inside the company, then in theory, you don't really have to do much manual accounting. You don't have to account for much because it all runs through the card and their intelligence system, which is they're automating the nitty-gritty work that either an accountant or a CFO doesn't really want to be in the weeds on, and then they're freeing up that CFO to be available for higher end work, which I think is it's incredible. It's one of my favorite teardowns of a company that is using their messaging accurately and very benefit driven instead of feature driven. Like they're really attacking this incredibly well.
Agreed. And you just named something important, benefit-driven over feature-driven. That's the discipline most companies fail at. But here's what I want to add to your observation. The card is the Trojan horse. It's the entry point that captures all the data. And once the data flows through RAMP, the automation becomes inevitable. The integrations become sticky. The switching cost becomes enormous. So the card isn't the product. The card is the distribution strategy for the entire back-office operating system. Which brings me to my hard question. If the card is just the entry point and the real product is full back-office automation, who does that actually make RAMP's most dangerous long-term competitor? And I'm not talking about Brex or Concur. Think bigger.
Who does that make? Okay, ask your question again. Who does that make Ramp's their longest term competitor? Yeah, reframe that, please.
If RAMP owns the entire back-office finance stack, accounting, payments, banking, procurement, expenses, who else wants to own that same territory?
Oh, I mean the big like you have giant KPMGs and the big accounting firms. That's who their biggest, I guess, threat would be.
That's one angle. But think even closer to the data layer. QuickBooks,
Oh yeah,
NetSuite.
QuickBooks Zero, all that. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And here's why that's fascinating from a positioning standpoint. RAMP isn't positioning against them directly. They're quietly making them irrelevant. By the time a company is fully on RAMP, QuickBooks becomes a reporting tool at best. The intelligence, the automation, the decision making, that all lives inside RAMP now. They're not attacking the accounting software category. They're absorbing it. So here's what I want to ask you, Troy. Given everything we've broken down, the identity play, the fear underneath the aspiration, the card as Trojan horse, the slow absorption of the entire finance stack, What's the one word or phrase you would use to describe what RAMP is actually positioning itself as in the mind of the CFO?
Ease of expenses. Uh, hmm. E- I think it has to do with an ease of tracking, ease of expense management, and or it's almost an all-in-one accounting software, but that's not what they're positioned as. They're making the CFO's life a dream, like they're effortless reporting. I'm circling around it, but I'm not exactly tight on it. What does it look like to you?
To me, RAMP is positioning itself as the operating system for financial intelligence, not a tool, not software, an operating system. Because an operating system is what everything else runs on top of. And that's exactly what they're building. But here's what makes their positioning razor sharp. They never say that. They don't use that language. Instead, they let the CFO arrive at that conclusion themselves through the experience of
Hmm.
the product and the messaging. That's the invisible hand at work. And you circled around something really important when you said, making the CFO's life a dream. That's actually closer to their emotional positioning than any feature they listed. Because what they're really selling is not software. They're selling the CFO's highest version of themselves, strategic, fast, unburied, in control. So here's my final question on this teardown, Troy. If you were advising a competitor trying to unseat Ramp, not match them, but actually displace them, where is the one gap in this positioning that you would attack?
The one gap in this positioning that I would attack, I think, although I really like their brand, the one piece of positioning that you could attack inside of here, it's a tough one. This is pretty tight. Ask me another question in another way. I think I can get closer to it, but ask a more prodding question.
Okay, Ramp is selling ambition, speed, and effortlessness to the CFO. But who in the company actually feels the pain of switching to Ramp?
Actually feels the pain of switching to ramp. I mean, who in the company feels the pain? Wouldn't it be the CFO? Am I totally missing this here?
Not the CFO. The CFO makes the decision, but who has to actually live inside the product every single day?
Oh, like the whole company, like the entire corporate, yeah, like whoever's using the card, the CEO, the all of the leadership.
Exactly. Every employee who submits an expense, every manager who approves a purchase, every accountant who touches the books. Ramp's positioning is almost entirely CFO facing. The messaging, the identity, the ambition framing, it's all speaking to the top of the finance org. But the actual users are spread across the entire company. And change management at the employee level is where most finance tools die during implementation. So the
Interesting.
gap is this.
Continue.
Top down Ramp has incredible top-down positioning, but there's almost no bottom-up emotional story for the everyday employee who has to change their behavior, submit receipts differently, use a new card, learn a new system. A competitor could attack that gap by owning the employee experience narrative, not the CFO's dream, but the whole company's ease, making the bottom-up adoption feel as effortless and desirable as the top-down pitch. Because if employees resist the tool, the CFO's dream becomes a nightmare. And that's the vulnerability nobody is talking about in this space. So, Troy, given everything we've broken down today, is this the kind of positioning analysis you wanted to walk away with? Or do you
Yeah.
want to go deeper on?
No, this is fantastic. I think we hit on I think we hit on some deeper points. Okay, then question for you. So if we were to do, because the way they're currently positioned makes sense from a go-to-market standpoint to speak to that CFO. From implementing a positioning strategy like that, long term, how would you bring the employees into the stack without diluting the position?
That's the right question. And it's a delicate one because you're right. The risk is real. If you start speaking to employees directly in your main positioning, you blur the sharpness of the CFO message and you start sounding like every other SaaS tool trying to be everything to everyone. So the answer isn't to change the positioning, it's to create a second layer underneath it. Think of it this way: the CFO positioning stays exactly where it is: ambitious, fast, AI native, operating system for finance. That doesn't move. That's the spear tip. But underneath that, you build what I'd call an adoption architecture. Internal champion content, onboarding narratives, employee-facing language that makes using RAMP feel like a status symbol rather than a chore. You make the employee feel like they're part of the ambitious company identity too, not just the CFO, so the employee doesn't feel like they're being handed a new tool. They feel like they're being upgraded as part of a company that operates at a higher level. The positioning stays top down. But the culture building goes bottom up, and they meet in the middle at the product experience. Here's my question for you, Troy. Do you think RAMP is currently doing any of that bottom up culture building? Or is that genuinely an open white space in how they operate?
So it's actually quite fascinating you said that because in some of these other sections, you can see that they're starting that. There's a piece that says AI that learns from your team, powered by 50,000 others that came before you, and then scale the team, shrink the paperwork. So, mm, getting close. Like I think they're slowly integrating that narrative, but like that is a hard strategy play. That is a hard narrative to integrate, and it would take a lot of diligence and focus and like a lot of culture change too. So that's cool. I like this a lot. I think we covered a lot. Any final words?
Yeah, one final thought. What RAMP has built is rare. Their positioning has a clear enemy, a clear identity, a clear emotional engine, and a product that delivers on the promise. That alignment between strategy and product is why they're at 40 billion. The bottom-up narrative is the next frontier for them. And whoever figures that out first, whether it's RAMP or a competitor, will own not just the CFO's budget, but the entire company's behavior. That's a much harder position to displace. You came in with a sharp read, Troy. Selling time back to CFOs was closer to the truth than most analysts would get. We just went 3 layers deeper than that today. Good teardown.
Awesome. Thanks, Edward. Okay, so that's the video. That was one of my favorite teardowns. So, anyways, talk to you soon. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like more, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.